Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Barabo, and we're really excited to have this conversation today about how we work with clients. We'll find out what's similar, what's different, and then hopefully you'll come over to the Shaman's Cave or on the YouTube channel and tell us, how you work with clients because there might be ways that we've never thought about. So welcome.
Yeah, so in today's world, the issue that's really coming up is how do we work with clients in a safe way? And can you do shamanic work effectively remotely? And so I'd like to just share a little bit of the history for me in all of this. Back in the 1980s, I wrote an article on soul retrieval, soul loss, and soul retrieval for um, Shamanstrom. It was the only magazine
Hmm.
on shamanism out at the time, started by Timothy White. And it was a great magazine. And I wrote the article because I was going to write a book and I wanted to get something short published on the topic. And my power animal came to me in a journey and he said, "Do you know how many people are going to contact you wanting soul retrievals after this article comes out?" And I said, "Oh, you have a good point." And he said, "You may not do any remote work. You may not do any remote work." And I said, "Okay." Back in those days, I was still, new to shamanism, whatever my power animal said, it was just okay. But then we started to converse more, and he started to talk to me that if you do long distance work, where was the pilgrimage? Where was the sacrifice to get to the healing? And Renee and I actually talked about this on another show. I talked about the pilgrimage of getting up to my house that was not really built and on a road that was undrivable on in the winter. And so years go by. We have a short show, so I have to pick up from the 1980s to where we are now. Um, and so, I wasn't doing long distance work. I was on prisoners. Soul retrieval was really big in prisons. So I was doing a lot of remote work on prisoners. I did a lot of remote work on people who were unconscious in a coma, children who couldn't speak. And, I was really successful. But again, these people couldn't get to me. And then what I noticed over time, and we're all noticing it, is that the veils between the worlds are getting thinner. They're just getting thinner. And so it was when I started to creep slowly into doing some remote work because of all my travels. It was becoming too hard to see, all the clients I wanted to see. I started to notice I was getting different results. I was getting stronger results than I had been getting in the past with just your regular person, not person in crisis. The results go wild, persons in crisis, a lot goes on, but your regular person, where the results can be subtle with shamanic work, period. Did the remote work create the subtle results, or was it just that the subtle results were what were the healing? And so I did notice that the veils became very thin between the worlds. And when I moved my parents to town, who were in their 90s, and I couldn't see clients at that time here, I moved to just doing 100% remote work, and that's what I'm doing right now.
It's kind of, this is a part where our paths really kind of diverge a lot, because when I was first accepting this whole role as a shamanic being, because I did not go, Sandra like embraced her healing. I mean, it seems to have, you've embraced it a lot more than it took me till I was 60. Not really, maybe my 50s, but so I was once trekking through Peru with my cameras because I wanted to film all the indigenous elders. And I have all of them. And now we have this archive with you, but I have boxes full of interviews that I did. And I got this, every time once in a while, I get a really clear vision, like when my cat had to die so I could grow spiritually. Well, I'm carrying the camera, and the spirit came in from the mountain and said, listen, you can take all the videos you want, but if you're asked to do a certain kind of healing, you have to stop what you're doing and focus. And so generally for me, those are when people are dying, that they will show up back in my life after 30 years we haven't talked, and all of a sudden, they have an incurable, and I do a lot of that type of work. And then, being that I'm such a business-minded woman, although you're very business practical too, but that, I ended up finding myself doing a lot of healing around, high-level executives that were, influencing elections and things like that. And I don't mean that's, I got put in my place once when a teacher told me, well, I'm doing high level things too. I'm educating the next generation. I'm there like, yeah, that puts you right back in your chair. So I will get calls that I will have to stop what I'm doing to take care of them. And you're different because you live as, you're a healer. I mean, you're a teacher, but you are a healer. And that's like a cloak I put on and off. Although that's not true, because when I go into, I'm doing an opening event next week, and I bring the healing to it. I'm going to go pick the sage and wrap the sage and put it in everyone's gift basket. But I'm not having people come over for soul retrievals per se.
Yeah. So when I work remote, and then I'll share with you something that you can do as long as you have permission. So when I work remote, I train teachers and practitioners. That's mostly what I do now. And shamanicteachers.com is my other website where I have that list of brilliant people working with me. And we all work differently. Some work on Zoom, some still work on Skype, some work over the phone. I still work in the old way that I did when I started doing remote work. Number one, I was trained to work with a person's address, to focus on their address, their location. Some people work with pictures, some people work with little stuffed animals. There's an old native way of actually doing soul retrieval, extraction work, depossession work on a stick, where you empower the stick with the person and you work on the stick. You do the soul retrieval, you blow in the soul, you take out the spiritual intrusions, the possessing spirit, and then you go outside in nature and you break the stick and you say, this is just a stick. And Carol Proudfoot Edgar, who's a brilliant shaman, we used to teach together. And that was her way.
I love that.
Yeah, I taught that to her and she loved it. It just didn't work for me. I never got results.
You didn't get results from the stick?
No, so I stopped it. But how I was loving to work was working, and this is how some shamans actually work remotely when they can't travel, is working with a crystal. And so I would blow in the soul to a small crystal, and then I'd wrap it up in a really nice little package with red cloth and string, and I'd put a cassette tape. We're going back a long time. I'd put a
A cassette.
tape.
She's really going back.
I'd put a cassette tape with my
Oh.
journey, and I'd bring it to FedEx with instructions of what to do when you get the crystals. And I worked with a little girl who had been kidnapped and stopped speaking, and she listened. My power animal gave her a healing story.
Oh.
She did not let go of that crystal or that tape. That tape broke, and I had to do a new one for her. She was never without it. She played it 24/7, and she did heal. So remote work does work, but yeah, I blew in souls to crystals and mailed them all over the world. But I find that just working with focus and intention, I didn't have to do all those other things. Although as a woman who loves doing ceremony, they were fun to do. I just tell people, I will work on you when I can, and I will contact you. And with homework, my power animal gives a lot of homework. So if you work with me remotely, it's not a passive. There's no passive work.
There is no passive.
You gotta do some work, and it just works it does work incredibly well. But there is a piece about permission, and I don't know, Renee, if you want to talk about that, but we haven't heard how you work remotely either. So
Well, I was thinking, like I always downgrade myself, and then I'm there like, well, you too work. Like, I'll get it's like, oh, I'm going to call Sandra and get a cassette. Renee, I'm not so sure about it. I'm going to get a win. And that's the truth. I do. Ever since I'm not a big, Sandra said something about me at my ceremony, and I'm like, yeah, she's right. I'm not a big ceremonialist. I realized the other day that I bring the wind to the ceremony. I'm like the Heyoka at the fire. It's gonna like, that's just who I am. And so the nicest part about this wind work is that it's expedient and it does the work. It's just like once we call in a wind, the wind does the work. And which I love because I'm a fast moving, fast shaking kind of person. But what I will do for people now is when they ask for stuff, I will go outside barefoot and I will start to blow the wind whistle for them. And when I blow the wind whistle, I usually get the whole story and then some. And then I'll pull a card. I'll pull a wind spirit card, and then it will always tell me what wind I'm sending over to give them a hand with it. And then because I'm more of an rugged individualist, like Sandra said, it doesn't come without the homework. It comes with what are you going to do next with this piece of information. So a lot of the work that I always do has a lot of really deep-seated soul searching, and that's just how it's worked best for me. And the wind has been really helpful because it's been able to channel it.
Yeah, in shamanism, there's a big difference. And we did really early on, we did a show on this. You can find it on the archives on the difference between healing and curing.
Mm-hmm.
And this shamanic work is actually the cure, but the work that the client does on themselves is the healing part that needs to happen for the cure to take place. In an indigenous culture, people were already trained when they were, as soon as they could talk, what the healing work was, how to live a life in balance and harmony and in peace in your community. And in our culture, we're not taught that. So we first have to learn that after the shamanic work happens. And so when I teach soul retrieval, I teach it as a 5-day course with weeks of work that you can do with a client, ceremonies, guided exercises if they don't want to get into shamanism, of how to go into the deepest parts of yourself and make those changes so that you're moving forwards instead of being anchored to your past. So,
And something we both hit upon, but neither of us really said, is the permission part. When I said I go outside and I blow a wind, I only do that when somebody's asked me. And if they haven't implicitly asked me, I will say, would you like me to send a wind for this? Would you like me to light a candle for you? And I think that's one thing that has been really in this relationship that Sandra and I have developed over the last couple of years doing our podcast, is that we both have things going on, but neither of us go into the other person's space to take care of them because we haven't asked. You know, if I need Sandra to do something, I'll ask, and I'll ask her, hey, do you want me to light a candle for that? But that's the part that I always got in trouble with people with Reiki. They said, oh, I'm going to send you some Reiki. I'm there lighting. I didn't ask. You know, it's like, oh, but it's just universal love energy. And it's like, I didn't ask. I have my own divine connection with my own universal energy. And unless I explicitly ask you for permission, or I give you permission to send me some energy, you know, keep it home.
yeah.
Because you're just projecting out that I want that energy, or that I need that energy. And I may or may not.
Yeah, it's a very tricky subject because it goes into stalking. It actually goes into stalking. You're actually psychically stalking people because you're not doing the work. The spirits are, and they're seeing everything about a person's life, and you're looking into people's lives without their permission. One of the hardest lessons for me on this one was back in probably the late 1980s, my best friend died of AIDS, and he never let me do any healing work on him. Never. It broke my heart. Of course, I felt I could help him. It was back in the 80s. I was new to shamanism, and I was like, oh my God, you're not letting me help you. And he said, this is my illness. Let me take care of it on my terms. And he wanted to die on his own terms. And it was beautiful. And that's a big teaching, is how we force. We don't allow people to go through their challenges in life because we think we have to save everyone and that they shouldn't have challenges. And challenges are about growth. And so we need to give people permission. But let's say if a baby can't talk, I work on children, but they have to give me permission. They have to give me permission. If they can't talk, if a person is unconscious, if a person is so psychotic they can't have a rational conversation, then you could do what's called in shamanism a middle world journey, where you journey to their hospital room or to their house where they're living, and you introduce yourself and say, would you like some spiritual work? I can do some spiritual work on your behalf. But the people this is my thing, and I'm sorry if I offend any of you out there, but the people who say, somebody's higher consciousness told me it was okay, that to me is like fingernails on a chalkboard. I go berserk, because if a person can talk, they can give permission. So you don't need the higher self giving permission. I only do middle world journeys if a person can't talk to me, period. End of story.
I absolutely agree. I'm thinking two things I'm thinking about. I was thinking about for people just beginning. I'll never forget when getting your stick down, your own personal, and I call it a stick, but your own personal You know, you might take a training and they might show you how to lay out the spirit on a blanket and do all that. And you might say, okay, that's nice, that's theirs. But you do stumble and fall around a lot when you first get started. And I now look back at those experiences. Like, I had a friend who told me I wasn't doing it right. And I'm thinking, like, I mean, that wasn't helpful. So you do need some willing participants, and that's what classes are good for, because you're all there willing. But just know that if you trip over yourself at first, it doesn't mean to stop doing the work. It means you need more practice. And over time, I didn't discover the wind until, like, I don't know, 20 years into me practicing. And I know that spirit will tell me what I need to do next. Like, sometimes I'll take out my rattle, sometimes I'll take out the wind. I mean, you just have to start to trust that you're going to be shown your own personal way of working, because I don't think there is one way to work. Like, you were talking about the addresses. Yeah, my friend does the addresses with the Paralander herbs. So we all have our own unique gifts. And so Sandra's way or my way might sound like, no, that's not how I do it. And that's okay. Do
Yeah.
you get results?
Well, it's the thing that we're having the hardest time understanding in this culture. It's really crazy how we try to put ourselves together as one being. You will never see two shamans working the same way anywhere in the world. You will never. But what you see here in the Western world, in America and Europe, and the Western mind in South America, you see everybody trying to work exactly the same way. What direction do you hold the feather? What direction do you shake the rattle? We're actually trying to work like a factory instead of actually practicing shamanism. And the shamanism I work with is where, as the practitioner, you're just a vessel for the spirits. So you don't even know how you're going to work, because it's the spirits who are doing the work. So I never know what's going to happen.
I know, and it never happens the same way twice either.
Yeah.
You think you're going one place and you're not. So I think, I don't know, I hope that Sandra said she had an exercise that she was going to give us. So we're always like those.
Yeah, so if you want to try, for those of you who have a journey practice, this is not for people who don't have a journey practice, because let me just be clear briefly. Shamanism is a practice of direct revelation, and shamanism is a practice where you carry the power of your helping spirits. You don't do the work yourself. So you have to be working with helping spirits who are showing you how to carry their power, how to do their work. You're just doing their bidding. We get all romantic about what we're doing in the world, but we're just a vessel for the helping spirits. So if you have a practice and you know whose spirits you're the vessel of, find a friend or a loved one, family member, community member, coworker, and say, I'm listening to this strange show, and I learned how to do this thing where I can actually perform healing on you. Would you like me to try it? And so then you journey to your helping spirit that you work with for healing, either a power animal or a teacher. And you ask them to go and perform a healing on this person, and you watch it in the journey. And this is one of the ways that I work when I'm in a big rush and there's a huge crisis. So let's say I'm getting ready to get on with Renee and I get a phone call, so and so is in Maimonides Hospital in Brooklyn, New York, and they really need your help. And I'm like, oh my God, I have 5 minutes to the show. I can't get everything out to do the work. I'll close my eyes and go within, and I'll say to my power animal, please go help so and so in Maimonides Hospital in room number in Brooklyn, New York. And you know, if you're journeying, you can actually watch what's happening. Again, I do it when I'm in too much of something else is going on, but the situation is critical and I can't wait for my free time.
Oh, I want to try that. How about if we all try it, then we come back over to the Shaman's Cave or down below in the YouTube links and tell us how it went. Don't tell us who you did it for or anything because it's other people's private business, but tell us how it went and what you saw and if it worked for you. What do you think, Sandra? I like that one.
Yeah, it's a really powerful, I teach it in all my beginning workshops, whether they're online or physical, because this is such a powerful way to work and it works really well. So try it and share on the Shaman's Cave or on the YouTube wall so we can see how you're working and what you're finding.
That's fun. Hey, speaking of which, I just want to let people know that this week, all of the wind whistles are arriving from parts around the world, from Mexico, and from Chile. So, you know, I don't, if you remember back a couple of months ago when during COVID, I lost the original wind whistle maker, and I think it was to open us up to more whistling vessels around the world. And so I'm very honored and excited to share that. And come over to the Wind Clan. And we're also going to be doing the fire tenders journey again during the solstice. So come over, and I believe Sandra is going to be doing something around the solstice as well. And the other thing is buy our books. Hey, we sit here every week, we share our wisdom. Buy our books.
Renee is actually encouraging me. I always just say in my monthly newsletter, I have these great books that really help people. Please buy them. And this month, for the first time, I said, support my work.
Right.
But it is a way. And, you know, I know people get overwhelmed with my books because I have 12 of them, but you know, just think you can get books on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles for $1 or $2. So if you want the knowledge, if you want to read some different ways of working, you know, then money shouldn't be the issue. But both Renee and I are really working on helping people hold the space and moving forward. And we're both, it's interesting, we're both really putting a lot of energy into our projects on the solstice. So watch for announcements that we make, and we wish you a beautiful day or night whenever you're listening to this.
And go out and do that healing for somebody who gives you their permission. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone.